So my name's Graeme Sutherland, as you know. I have a social media following of people in various healthcare services, healthcare, carers. I was a previous carer myself for my mum who has dementia, and I think it's really important to speak about health and social care, which is something that you have briefly touched on with your debates, but I feel like it's massively overlooked when it comes to what people want to vote for, and people that follow me, that's what they're interested in. So I thought it'd be good to sit down with you and discuss.
Oh, it's great to be here, Graeme. And I'm Sarwar. I lead the Scottish Labour Party, standing to be Scotland's next First Minister. And can I first of all thank you, Graeme, because I've obviously long before this election campaign been following the stuff you do in social media, really powerful, really emotive, and I know it can't be easy having to share your own personal circumstances in such an open way. But I think why it's important is it gives so many other people a confidence, a reassurance that they're not struggling alone. But also, I think, is an eye opener for decision makers about how we've got to do things differently. So, thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to come and have this conversation on your platform.
I appreciate it. Thank you for coming this time. I know it's a busy period for you.
Relentless right now, but look, I think the big thing that's been missing from this election campaign from mainstream media perspective, whether that's broadcasting on conventional channels, whether it's in print media, is there hasn't actually been that deeper dive on the policy parts and actually the things that matter to people. I don't think most people really care about which politician's up, which politician's down, which party brand is up, which party brand's down. What they care about is what are politicians and leaders going to do for me and my family, and that's what I'm really interested in doing. That's why I'm really proud of the manifesto we've published. That's why I'm really keen to engage with you, because I think you're right. If you look at the big debates that happen, I think people quite often understandably talk about the cost of living crisis, how we help bring down bills, how we try and bring down the cost of items, and of course that's going to be a really important part because people have to live and to provide for their families. But the second biggest issue I think that's been discussed in this election campaign has been the NHS. And I think far too often we fall into a trap of thinking when we talk about the NHS that it's only GP practices or hospitals rather than thinking about social care. And social care for me is just as equal to the National Health Service. And actually so many of the problems we face in the National Health Service is because we aren't getting social care right. So if we can fix social care, that relieves so much pressure on the broader NHS, but it also means better outcomes for families like yours and many that are struggling.
So I think they come hand in hand. I think people don't realise that they are linked all the time. The amount of times disconnect between them as well is also a huge issue. But what pressures do you think what main pressures do you think there are in social care at the moment from your stance?
So I think thinking about the links part first, if you think about all the pressure that comes, so I often think about the hospitals, because I think often when people talk about the National Health Service, they think about hospitals. And you actually think about the problems at the entrance door of a hospital and the problems at an exit door of a hospital, and that is what's putting even more pressure, I think, on the hospitals. Why is there a problem at the entrance door? There's not enough community care, so people think about the GP, but actually wrap around community care. When that fails, more and more people present to A&E, or more people need to then go into a hospital. And then when you think about the exit door, so many people are actually cleared to leave hospital but are stuck in hospital because they can't get care packages, either care packages at home or access to a social care place. So we've got to relieve that pressure at the entrance and the exit door. How do we do that? So you asked a question about where the biggest pressure is. I think, to be honest, depending on who you're talking to and which part of the system, they'd probably say a different part. So I think if you're talking to local councils, if you're talking to the NHS, they'll think the biggest pressure is we don't have a free flow of the system because there's not enough step-down beds or social care places and care homes, or not enough modifications happening in councils. So that's why we made a firm commitment that we will fund 1,000 additional places so people can get access to social care places. We'll have the 300 step-down beds, so there is a transition from getting out of hospital to getting into either an adapted home or to a social care place. And we'll properly fund local government so we can actually make the adaptations that people need in their homes. That answers some of the challenges for, I think, NHS managers and bureaucrats, and answers some of the challenges for councils. Then I think if you speak to a patient's perspective, I think for a patient, they'll feel as if, yes, it's great we've got free personal care, but they'll feel as if the care is inconsistent, sometimes a bit haphazard. And often doesn't suit their own lived experiences or challenges. So I've lost count of the number of people, for example, that tell you that they get a 10-minute care visit that's not going to help them with the outcomes they need, or too often, far too early in the day, their loved one is being tucked up in bed when they don't want to be in bed so early, or they can't get the emergency support. So we've got to get that balance right. Then I think there's probably a third group of people that are the carers. And I don't mean the paid carers, I mean the unpaid carers, the family members. And I think for lots of family members, it'll be a frustration. Why can't my loved one get the appointment they need? Why can't they get the speed of the treatment they need? Why can't they get the care assistant they need? Why can't they get the adaptation they need? And there's more burden put on those individuals as family members. And that impacts on their family life. It impacts on their employment opportunities, impacts on their own relationships, because that daily pressure of understandably wanting to think and help a loved one does add knock-on effects elsewhere. So how you get proper respite for those families and adequate care into those households to support those families, I think is also really, really important, and also pathways for them to get skills and employment and appropriate housing. And then I think there's probably a fourth group, which is the actual social care staff themselves, who the vacancy rates are huge, the turnover rates massive, and the pay nowhere near good enough. So how do you get proper terms and conditions? That's why we support the £15 an hour pay for social care workers. It means also including their travel time as part of their responsibilities, and also improving their terms and conditions so we can actually recruit, train and retain staff. And then the fifth bit probably is those that operate care homes themselves. I've lost count of the number of people who think there are just such a haphazard standard about what's happening in different care homes across the country. That's why we've got to have a national care service with national standards, national bargaining on pay and conditions, so people can get a consistency of service regardless of where they stay in this great country, Scotland.
No, I agree. You've unpacked a lot there, but when it comes down to, going back at the start, unpaid carers, I was one. I think the criteria to become an unpaid carer is so strict that to do so you end up putting yourself in poverty, because you need to meet so many hours a day. I think it's 35 hours a day.
Yep.
You need to earn under amount per week, which is, with minimum wages, under 16 hours work a week. It's quite hard to get a job that does that. And then I think you get something like £83 a week, which when you take in, you need minimum 35 hours, works out something like £2 an hour, but it's a 24-hour job. It's not, you can go to bed at night. I was lying awake during the night. I was working at home. Luckily, I had my sister doing night shift and I did the day. So, but a lot of people don't have that, and that's what I mainly get from people. They don't know how to cope with it because they end up quitting a career, something they've worked a whole life for, or give up a chance to have a family to then care for their loved one because they simply can't afford to do so, and the money they get is so low that it's a struggle. And that's why people feel very isolated, because the care standard, as you said, is not fantastic. It's kind of, you can get good and bad. You're always going to get that. But it's, again, with staff, it's trying to retain the right staff. And I think if more money, or they were paid better, because I think people underestimate what carers have to do. I think people just think they go in, hand a couple of pills and walk away, when they don't. It's quite a laborious job as well.
I think on that, there's such a disparity, I think, for people having a different thought about an NHS nurse and a different thought about a social care nurse, when in actual fact, in many circumstances, a social care nurse might have a even more difficult job than an NHS nurse.
Yep.
And also, if we accept that social care, given we've got an ageing population, given we've got more and more people living longer lives with comorbidities, actually having quality social care nursing is really, really important. And if it is a national priority, then it should get a national standard of wage and national standard of living. Now, I'm not going to disparage anyone that works in a supermarket. Look, work is work, and I want people to work. I want people to have successful lives. But if we accept that one of our biggest challenges facing the country is social care, then it's not right or fair that someone that works in a supermarket is paid higher than someone that works in a social care setting. That's why I support the fight for 15. Can I just make a broader point about unpaid carers? Mm-hmm. It's interesting because I've heard it from both sides. I've had lots of constituents come in and see me over the years who are eligible for money for their caring responsibilities, but refuse to take it because they say, I'm not doing this for pay, I'm doing this because it's my duty as a child of this parent that looked after me, brought me up. And I think it's about saying this is not you being paid to care what you think is your natural responsibility. This is to allow you to live a certain standard of life, and this is what you're eligible for, and it's fair, so you should claim for it. So I think there's that part for some individuals and some families. And then there's another part, which is, I don't think we can underestimate how much money unpaid carers actually save the public sector and our public services. Because if they weren't doing that work, you would need even more staff, it would be even higher costs, and there'd be even more burden put on the state. So therefore getting the balance right of adequate levels of support, as well as adequate levels of respite care, because, you know, carers need respite too.
Oh, yeah,
and because I make this point all the time whenever I meet someone that has caring responsibilities, whether it is someone that's a partner or a child, I always make the point of saying, are you taking time to look after yourself as well? Because see, if they're not taking, same goes for you. If you're not taking the time to look after yourself, you can't care for your mum anywhere near as much as you want to or like to. And that goes for many people across. So unless we look after the carers as well, those they're caring for aren't going to get the standard of care they need either.
That's something I always try and get across as well, that you need to look after yourself. I mean, I'm better at giving advice and taking it. But when it comes to unpaid care, for my own personal
I don't know, you're
circumstance-
pretty trim and well manicured there, Graham. So
I
I've
like
got
to
to
keep my
say,
beard sorted.
and your beard sorted and your hair. So you know,
That's
so I think you're doing no bad.
They're one things I take care of. My eyebrows.
Is your
obviously.
beard and your eyebrows?
Oh yes, these are the money makers. But when I unpaid care for mum was a choice me and my sister made. It wasn't that we were going to into poverty. It's because mum was under 65. She was 59 when she was diagnosed, and at that time, it's changed now. But you could not get any funding or support with care unless you're 65 and over, which is ridiculous to think about now because you either have dementia or you don't. So my mum had to pay for that herself. And we were doing the care, which is why it was kind of annoying because we were doing it. I mean, I don't mind doing it for free, but it's the principle of it because we were working full time then, caring full time, and trying to juggle a life in between. And I feel like a lot of people in my position, even though if they get the pay, they feel very isolated and very invisible, I think, because they don't really get any recognition when, as you said, they save a lot of money. I think it's around
Billions of pounds.
16 billion in Scotland alone. I think it's 150 something billion in the UK, which is the equivalent to a second NHS. So if they were to give up all that, the NHS would be gone, essentially.
Yep.
In talking terms, but I don't know. It just feels for what they do, it's very unrecognised, and it's almost as if they're relied on being quiet just to get on with it, which I think's quite unfair. And
Like you're obviously giving that a voice with the platform you have, which is really important. Now, one of the things I'll say, and I'll just be straight off the bat with it and be honest about it. Any politician that tells you these are the problems and tomorrow we can fix them just won't be telling you the truth. So I'm not going to do that. But where I think the processes and the standards of how we get there is, one, recognition, second, adequate support, third, fair pay, fourth, adequate places, fifth, adequate adjustments to people's homes, and sixth, it's got to be backed up with the funding for local authorities as well as with the NHS. And then, seventh, I would say the national standards that you need in individual care homes as well. And if we can methodically work our way through that, we can be in a much, much better place, I think, in 5 years' time and 10 years' time than we are just now. And that challenge is only going to get harder, Graeme, because if you look at the ageing demographic, if you look at the older person to younger person ratio, all of that is just getting starker. So unless we start making those structural adjustments in how we deliver our public services now, it will be even worse in 5 or 10 years' time if we don't take that necessary action.
yeah, it's being proactive than reactive to it, and that's what I've tried to get across online, that something needs to start now because it's going to become a pandemic in itself with the amount of people who require care and not enough places to provide it or people to provide it.
Yep.
And that's the same as like retaining staff, I guess, is within the NHS and care homes. You just, because of the pay and what they do, they just don't seem to stick around. I think it's...
So what we want to do is increase the number of training places, improve the pay, maintain free tuition, because that's important, but we want to make it more conditional, which is if the public pays for you to get your education, then they should expect you to work in our public services in return. So we would have a train here, stay here policy. So they'd have to give a 5-year commitment to work in our NHS or social care system. In exchange for that, we would improve pay, terms and conditions. So it is that system that works, that delivers for people. Because right now I've lost count of the number of people I meet who, because they can't get a full-time contract, because they feel their conditions are too low, because they think the pay is not high enough, they either go and work in a different sector altogether, despite having got the qualification and the public having paid for them to get that qualification, or many of them are choosing to go abroad. And that's not because they all want to go somewhere that's a bit more sunny and better. It's because for lots of people, it's the only chance for them to get career progression and better outcomes for themselves. Let's make those better outcomes here in our own country by training people, increasing the places, increasing the pay, and improving the conditions, but also having that conditional approach to free tuition if you stay and work in our NHS and social care system for 5 years.
No, I agree. I think a lot of people that message me don't work in that area because of the pay currently. It's because they love what they do.
Yep.
I think it takes a special kind of
It's
person
service,
to do
isn't it?
So,
It's
yeah,
public service.
That's mainly why people
most of the carers I meet, if not all of them, they tell you, look, if this was just for the pay, I would have been going to do something else. I'm doing this because I feel as if I've got a public service duty. And so many of them actually have families where there's multiple members that work in care, or they've got generations that worked in care, which, again, I don't think we can downplay.
No, not at all. I think given it's the biggest killer in the UK year on year, it just feels like the funding is very sparse in comparison to other illnesses, and that's not to discredit any other illness. I know they're all equally as bad, but the difference is there's no cure for this, and it's only getting worse. And it just feels for being the top cause of deaths in the UK, it just doesn't kind of tally up the funding that's going towards the help, like you said, the respite and carers pay and a whole multitude of things. It just feels like it's kind of it's not mainstream enough. I guess that's the best way to put it. Compared to,
I think one of the lessons actually from the pandemic, because you referenced the pandemic, is I think one of the lessons from the pandemic is so much that went wrong, particularly around social care settings. And I think one of the reasons why when I say we, I mean collectively as a country, we got it wrong around social care is I think far too often people make the mistake of thinking that social care is somehow the same as palliative care. It's not. A social care setting is not to support someone in their final days, weeks, months, or years of life. It's meant to be so they can get a quality and standard of a life that they'd expect given their individual physical or mental health or broader health conditions. And so I think just thinking differently about social care in that context, I think, is really important. And I think if we can get that culture change backed up with proper structural change around our health and social care system, I think it could be transformational. Is it going to be challenging? Yes. There's no point pretending this has got an easy fix. But I think there are some basic things that can move us in the right direction.
I think speaking about it in schools, like from not
because there'll be so many hidden carers in schools.
Well, that's the thing. So in even high schools, like I became a carer a couple of years after leaving high school, but I didn't know what dementia was.
So you were 18, 19, were you? Or
no, I left school at 18. So
right.
I was about 20 21,
right.
22. So it wasn't not that long after leaving school.
And did that impact on your studies?
I had just finished my degree.
Right.
So luckily I had got my degree before this. Well, my dad had passed away during my degree, so it took me a bit longer I had to reset the year because he died days before it, my exams. But it didn't impact my degree, but it's...
Did it impact your employment?
Yeah, because I didn't want to climb the ladder because I didn't want to commit to anything because I knew my mum was going to get worse and I didn't want to give up that time. And I feel like people in school, they're probably carers in high school just now that might care for their grandparents, for example, or could in a year's time care for their parents because their parents' dementia and other illnesses are becoming more common younger. And I think that people don't really know what a lot of these illnesses are. Specifically dementia for my case, I feel like that's something that should be taught in schools because it is so common and becoming common, to show them what that looks like so they can understand it and know how to deal with it, because often people, myself included, I was very scared of it, didn't know what it was, and it's a huge learning curve, especially if you're becoming a carer. You're kind of just left to go on with it. And I think if education is a key part of in social care as well for many illnesses, of teaching people what this looks like and what it means. Because I think the issue is people think this is all for old people when it just isn't the case anymore.
I actually met a group of young carers, and some of the stories that I heard directly from them were around, one, they don't really like talking about it when they're at school, and you can understand why. Secondly, thinking about the impact it then has obviously on their home life, but also on their school life. Ability to study, ability to do homework, ability to prepare for exams, and then the knock-on impact that then has on their exam results, like their Nat 5s, their hires, and then the knock-on impact that has on accessing university or college or an apprenticeship. Like, if you're not supporting young people that might be hidden carers in their schools, that, okay, is challenging for them in the period they're doing their caring, but it's going to knock on impact on their life chances, life opportunities, and life outcomes. So I wholeheartedly support that that idea of proper training and education in schools, partly because it'll help identify, it'll also help give, peer support, and third, so people can make the interventions they need to make so every young person gets a chance to succeed.
Such a simple thing to implement in schools, even like a wee hours workshop. Like,
and would you be up for doing that? Would you? Would you personally? Because I think it's one of the things again that we don't really do well in our schools is people with lived experiences that are happy to go in and share their experiences. And actually, a young person who has a similar story to you, Graeme, will be more likely to be inspired by you going into their school and sharing your story, and they can relate to you rather than someone coming in with a textbook or a presentation. So getting more voices like yours into our schools, I think, would be really powerful.
No, yeah, I think lived experience changes everything for it. It's, for me personally, like someone reading a book is so much different than living it.
Yep.
And I think, I'd love to do that, just speaking to people, because that's one thing I try and do online is break the stigma of speaking about.
Have you ever done it in schools before?
I've done public speaking and did for various events, but I've never done it in schools. I don't know how children would take to it. I'm calling them kids, but they're like 15, 16.
Let's make it happen.
I'm 35.
Let's make it happen. We'll pretend you're a Love Island contestant going into the schools.
I'm 35 in a couple of months now. They'll think I'm old anyway.
You're what, 35? Did you
months,
say?
Yeah.
Really? By the way, I've had a hard paper round compared to you, by the way. It must be the politics.
No, I need to moisturise this every day. Every day.
I'll get some beauty tips from you, like off screen.
Oh, it's a struggle these days. I look in the mirror, get wrinkles, and thinking, no, not ready for that. I've got grey hair. Can't see it.
Listen, my old man went bald at 23, 24, so I've always lived off the theory of better grey hair than no hair, right? So
I've been lucky. I've not got my dad's genes. I've got his eyebrows. That's it. That's all I've got. But yeah, that's what I'd love to do. Something like that, just to teach.
I think that'd be genuinely. I think that'd be really powerful. And other people in similar circumstances to you that would think about doing the same.
I know. I follow people online. I don't know them personally,
In
but
Scotland?
we do chat. It's mainly England,
Right.
I know some people in Scotland. Everyone's touched with it in some way, but not a lot of people don't want to speak about it. I think that's the issue, and a lot of people don't like seeing it online either, which I'm aware of as well. But it's the reality, and I feel like that's all I talk about is dementia and carers and mental health. I feel
honestly more power to you, because it opens up. Because it'd be so reassuring for people that, because most of the people that watch your content, I imagine, you'll know better than me, are people that probably are able to share experiences and can relate to what you're saying and how it impacts on their lives. And having someone say it and being able to hear it and know they're not alone must be hugely, hugely significant.
I think that is the biggest thing, that seeing somebody else just going through. I'm not going through it now with the care at home.
Yep.
But my previous videos and talking about it is to see it's kind of comforting knowing somebody else. I know that sounds horrible, but knowing somebody else is going through it as well.
And does it get tiring?
What, doing it online or?
Because I often get, you can imagine in politics, we often get asked the question.
The same question
Does
over and
does it get tiring when you're campaigning on something or arguing about something or fighting for something? Does it get tiring? It must get tiring for you.
For me, not. So only the past year I've started trying to push for proper change and found out the issues there are and trying to get them changed. That's only been the past year. But no, I don't really get tired of talking about it. I feel like I live and breathe it just now, and it's quite therapeutic for me. Speaking about it. Don't know if you speaking about the same things as therapeutic. For you.
My guys are probably saying never shuts up, so probably is therapy in some senses.
Oh, I like it. I talk about it all day. I really would.
I get the sense you're shy and modest like I am, Graeme, so that makes life easier.
I'm quite shy.
Me too.
So You know, I've got a twin. She's the loud one. I'm the quiet one. Believe it or not.
I can't pretend I'm the quiet one. I used to be the quiet one, but I think you have to come out your shell in this kind of thing, don't you?
Well, since I started doing it online, that's when I started speaking. To believe.
Is that right? Your twins like you didn't shut up now?
Past 5-6 years, that's when I started speaking. Yeah, it's called Shadow. That used to be my nickname,
Brilliant.
which I thought was cool back in the day. But
No,
then
but
I realised what it means. I was literally.
And
a shadow.
do you get recognised when you're out and about? People chat to you about it? Do people come and share stories with you off camera, not just like comments on social media?
Not all the time, but it's mainly people who've cared for their family who'll come up, especially if I'm out with my mum. They'll come over just to say hi to her, which is nice.
Good.
And just say thank you to me, which is nice. It's not like I do it for that reason.
Yep.
But it's nice to see people that have helped, I guess, to know.
And does that help motivate you to keep going?
Well, yeah, because you're going to get, I mean, you probably get it yourself, the negativity online. You're going to get people that don't like you or don't like you do. And that's what I get. But I try to balance that.
Just people jealous of the eyebrows, Graeme, that's all it is.
Well, I've seen what people wrote about my eyebrows online. They give them the fear, apparently.
Are they?
I need to trim these every couple of days.
It's very impressive eyebrows, I must say. I know we're not here to discuss your eyebrows, but genuinely, I'm looking at your eyebrows thinking, I'm not even going to say it. Compare them to mine, for goodness sake. I'm jealous of the hair, the eyebrows, and the beard. But as a former dentist, good teeth as well.
I had braces.
Not surprised.
I had braces, and I've still got glue on one of mine. That was the dental hospital in Glasgow.
And why can't they get it off?
Well, I got them out when I was 18.
Right.
16. That was 20 years ago.
So
now.
why can't they buff it off?
No point now.
You just can't bother going back?
Part of me now.
Want me to do a homer for you, Graeme? Is that what you're suggesting?
Is it easy to get it off?
Aye, just a wee... is it on the front teeth?
Just there.
I can see it, actually.
Okay.
Honestly, you can...
You can see it?
I mean, they can't see it. I can see it. The first thing I notice about people is their teeth. It's the former dentist in me. The first thing I notice about people is their
I
teeth.
drink loads of coffee, so don't judge my teeth. I feel like
Listen,
my teeth.
when you're in the middle of an election campaign, trust me, I'm drinking more coffee than you, big man. Don't worry about that.
But what I wanted to ask, you've kind of touched on this before when I last spoke to you, was the number of bodies within the systems that are in social care, i.e. Care Inspectorate, social work, Triple SC, Ombudsman. I could name another 5. There's about 10. And when you are in that system, if you want to raise any sort of complaint or issue, it feels like a huge task from personal experience and speaking to many people online about it, to actually be heard. And you either get told it's not their remit and you get sent away, you need to go to someone else. So by the time you actually get somebody to deal with it, it's months down the line and it's a lot of work that they want you to do. And it's kind of making people not complain or stick up for themselves. And I think it's adding a negative annotation against what a care home is. For example, care home, people think that's, when you say that word, it's negative. You don't think care home, it's a good thing. I get part of that's what a care home is, but care homes genuinely have negative annotation added to it. And I think the systems fail in that sense because it's so complex.
See, I often wonder whether it's deliberately complex.
Well, that's
and what I mean by that is, like, there are so many different layers of bureaucracy and management and organisations and public sector bodies and all the rest of it, where you're an informed individual. So if you've got somewhere to go, you're also, one, you're informed. Secondly, you don't take no for an answer. Third, you can navigate. And I think the one I think you have to measure against is, what about those families that can't navigate?
Well, that's
or what happens to them? And I think so many of them just fall through the cracks. So we have to, I think, collapse the entire bureaucracy and have much more coherent single pathways for families to pursue any kind of complaint, issue or reassurance that they need. And that's one of the things we're looking at around how do we, because we've got public sector is massive in Scotland now. We've got 135 public bodies, what people reference as quangos. We've only got 129 MSPs. And all that does is find places to shift blame, shift responsibility, pass you from pillar to post. And eventually you think, what's the point? Move on. We've got to change that system. And I'm absolutely clear we've got to change that system. Because right now it feels like the system is rigged in favour of the establishment to try and protect reputations and organisations rather than measured in terms of what it means for individual families and service users. I want to shift that balance.
That's what I feel like. It's basically they rely on people.
Yep.
to walk
So,
away.
so not a social care example. I'll give you a broader NHS example. So we are going to introduce what's known as Millie's Law, named after Millie Main, who sadly died at the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital. And, you know, I've been working with Millie's mum for the last 8 years now. And every single step of the way, she has had to fight a different level of bureaucracy, a different level of management, a different government kind of institution. And it's always been as if she has to fight through to get the next barrier and then fight through to get the next one, because it's all about protecting reputations and institutions. What Millie's Law will do, it will shift the balance completely the other way. So the balance will be on the side of families and victims who need answers, who need support, who need the truth, rather than on the side of the institutions that so often are the barriers. And that's one of the first things we'll do, is pass Millie's Law in memory of Millie Main and to support lots of families across the country.
I think that'd make a huge difference.
It would also give right to legal representation, for example, because for a lot of families, they can't afford the large legal costs. They're always reliant on, you know, no win, no fee claims, or people acting pro bono. How do we give them a proper support mechanism so they can get the legal backing they need to take on some of these institutions that have failed them?
It's also the mental toll it takes on doing that. I don't think people realise that you're already going through a really difficult time, and to do that on top of it and fight for something that should be very easy, it just feels like I would have walked away if I didn't have.
And
the
it
time.
takes years.
Well,
I mean,
personally, I'm in a year down the line what I'm doing, and
which
I know
is
other
again
people,
not acceptable.
and it's trying to find answers. It's always you literally need to pull teeth to get an answer.
That's a dental pun right
I know,
there.
I was
So
gonna say. And it's
no, but it does take years. So
accountability, I
again,
guess.
so going back to the Millie example, we've been working on this for 8 years, and okay, there's been some progress, but nowhere near the speed of progress. And you know, fair enough. Okay, I'm telling another family story. I'm advocating for them, but for that family, they've got to relive that pain and that horror time after time after time. Why should they? You know, I want all these families to get closure, to be able to get answers, to be able to move on with their lives. Why should they spend a decade trying to get answers about what happened to their loved ones? That's going to give them permanent trauma and scars for the rest of their lives, and that's not fair for any family. And that's why changing that system has to happen. We've got to shift the balance, put our health and social care system back into the hands that people actually belongs to. That's the doctors, the nurses, the care staff, and the patients, rather than bureaucracy and management.
I think most of the time families are only sticking up for what is right by that person.
Yep.
It's not like they're doing it maliciously. They're just trying to get accountability.
But what about those families that don't have someone to fight for them?
Well, that's the thing too. That's what I've always said. Like, what happens to these people? It's they just get away with it.
Yep.
When they let people walk away, it's why they can't kind of get the complaints to make things better, because they should use the complaints and maybe negative feedback as a learning tool, as opposed to being defensive about it, because that's the way it feels, as if you're almost affecting their
I wonder if that's because
reputation.
they're constantly worried about litigation or such like.
It's
But
more
we don't have the same
reputational.
culture of litigation in Scotland compared to, for example, the US. And I just think in all of these things, honesty, truth, transparency, most often all a family wants, they don't want money. They just want an acknowledgement something might go wrong. They want an apology, and they want a reassurance it's not going to happen again.
And
That's the kind of system we've got to create.
I guess everything's complex. There's not just one fix for all of this. It's a huge task amongst all the other things that need to be done. But
Absolutely.
no, I appreciate it. That's
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Graeme. It's been a pleasure chatting to you.
you as well.
Thank you. Keep up the great work.
You as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
All the best.
I'm going to hold you into taking you into schools to talk about these things.
I'd love to do it, especially my mum's old school or my old school.
Yeah.
Don't know if they'd remember me though. In fact, I took her a year ago into the care, our old school, and some of the teachers are still there,
Good.
who I thought were old when I was younger. But they
We
actually
better
were
not
my age
name
now.
them. We better not name them on the
Oh.
recording.
And then I seen somebody walk past thinking it was a pupil. It was a teacher. That's when I knew.
That's when you
I'm
felt
sure.
your age.
Why should people vote in this election?
Look, of course, people have different political opinions, different political views. I'll obviously encourage them to be voting Scottish Labour, but actually, even more importantly than that, the big issues that we've been talking about: social care, pay for our staff, proper funding in local government, proper standards in our care homes, proper integration between health and social care, a proper national care service. These are all decisions that people are making for you. So you should be the one helping to shape those decisions by choosing who those decision makers are. So please use your vote on May the 7th.
Perfect. Thank you.